Hey everybody, Gromos here with another DCS video, flying the SA243 Gazelle a bit more. Now I figured with the Gazelle being pretty new, I make another video about it right away to show it off a little bit more, especially since I really enjoy flying this little helicopter and I have some more time flying it now. Now a word on the Gazelle module, now after having flown it some more. This is the first time I play a DCS module in early access, so I don't have much experience with other modules at this stage, but I'm very impressed with the Gazelle module. Considering it is early access and the first release of this helicopter, there are still one or two flight model tweaks being done. For example, the sensitivity of the anti-torque pedals is being a little bit adjusted, but other than that, the Gazelle seems to be in a great state. I certainly have the feeling I have a finished product here, not an unfinished one, as is often the case with early access products. Now, as I've said last time, the Gazelle is a handful at slow speeds, but with a little bit of training you can already do some fun precision flying in it, which I really like. I'm really interested in seeing what is possible with a helicopter like this with some real experience in it. I am also thinking about getting some rudder pedals for DCS helicopters. The twist handle for the anti-torque works fine, but when you do a lot of low-speed flying where you need a lot of anti-torque, this can get a bit tiresome for your wrist after a while, so your flying degrades after a while. So with some pedals I think I can improve my flying in helicopters further in the future, though I will have to do some relearning as I've barely used pedals so far, so I think it will take some time to get used to it. So I will look into some options here. I heard the MFG crosswind pedals are great, but they are also not cheap, though I guess considering what you're getting the price is justified. Anyway, I'm looking for some pedals that are not too close together, because I find it quite uncomfortable when the two pedals are too close together. But anyway, back to the Gazelle. Now, in the last video we had a short mission to show off the capabilities of the helicopter versus some older targets, mostly T-55s and BMPs, which were in a defensive position and not moving. And I thought, since I want to make more Gazelle videos, this time I want to try the chopper versus a bit more dangerous resistance this time to see how it does. The armament of this helicopter is of course limited with only 4 ATGMs, but then again, an anti-tank helicopter like this is supposed to operate close to a forward operating base, where it can resupply and refuel. At least that's how the German Bo 105 anti-tank helicopters were meant to operate, with improvised rearmament points close to the front line, those themselves often supplied by helicopters in, for example, clearings in the woods, so the helicopter could be rearmed and back in action pretty fast. Though I have to admit, at this point I know more about the tactics used by the German 105 anti-tank helicopters, and I have to read up some more on how the French intended to use the Gazelle in an anti-tank role. However, I assume the Gazelle being very similar in capabilities, the intended tactics would be comparable at least. After all, being small and agile, those kind of helicopters are perfectly suited to operate from such small improvised bases. And I noticed that when you build missions with this in mind and provide such a forward rearming position for the helicopter, the limited weapon load does not make that much of a difference. Nevada is of course not perfect for the Gazelle in the anti-tank role, as it is wide open country and lacks cover for the helicopter to get close enough, with the limited range of the Hot 3 missiles. But the helicopter should soon be available in the 1.5 version as well, so you can use it on the Caucasus map also, which is better suited for a helicopter like this that wants to hide in the terrain. I hope we get the Caucasus map in the 2.0 version soon though, since I do notice an increase in performance in 2.0 over 1.5, so I would like to play both maps in this version. But anyway, let's take a look at the scenario we have today. Last time we were supporting an attack, this time it is a defensive operation. Now, in this scenario, the opposing force has launched a large attack from the north towards a small settlement called Crystal Springs. Here, a few roads meet here, so the small settlement is of importance, as controlling it means controlling the roads in several directions. We have a first defensive line a bit further north, at Hiko, another small settlement, consisting of 2 platoons with M1 tanks and M2 Bradleys, as well as some limited anti-air defense. They are to slow down the enemy at once and do as much damage to it as possible, and if they can't hold any longer, fall back towards the main defensive line at Crystal Springs. Our job is straightforward enough. We are to support the defenders and do as much damage to the attackers as we can, to make it easier for our tanks to stop the enemy. We start at the forward rearming point here, where we can rearm and refuel as necessary. And there is a second farm here at Crystal Springs behind the second line, should the enemy advance far enough that the first one is no longer safe. Now, the enemy this time has, on top of more modern tanks than last time, better AA weapons and might even have air support of their own. So let's see how the Gazelle does in a scenario like this. Now, as mentioned, with Nevada being pretty open country and not providing much cover, we don't have many options to get close enough to the enemy forces to use our hot anti-tank missiles, with their maximum range of about 4.3 kilometers. The best options are again the hills east of the enemy advance, so this is where we are heading. We are just passing our first defensive line, which is west of Hiko. If possible, I would like to engage the enemy before they are in range of our first defensive line, but I don't know if I can get close enough in time. The enemy units should be some distance behind the hill in front of us, and I try to stay low enough to avoid detection, especially by radar. Now, a word on the Gazelle's capabilities here. The only other playable helicopter in DCS that can be used in this role would be the Ka-50, with the UH-1 Huey and the Mi-8 being transport helicopters that can only carry unguided rockets. So let's compare the upside and downsides of the Ka-50 and the Gazelle quickly. Now, I think it goes without saying that the Ka-50 would be the stronger helicopter here, as it is a dedicated attack helicopter with an impressive arsenal of weapons and much longer range ATGMs, but the little Gazelle has a trick or two up its sleeves as well. Two things specifically. Unlike the Ka-50, the Gazelle does have a radar warning receiver, the small round green screen next to the main console, which gives you a warning versus radar-guided threats from SAMs, AA guns or planes, so you don't get caught by surprise by them, like it can often happen in the Ka-50. On the other hand, the Ka-50 does have a laser warning system which warns you when you're getting ranged by a laser, like tanks for example will do when they try to shoot you while you hover somewhere. Now, the other useful trait of the Gazelle is that the optics are mounted on the roof. While it is not quite a mast-mounted sight, it still allows you to keep much more of your helicopter hidden while searching and attacking targets than you could with a nose-mounted sight like on the Ka-50 or the Apache. Though the nose-mounted sight is better at tracking targets below the helicopter, so it is, by the way, still a better choice for a helicopter like an Apache, as it can, in a low-threat scenario, stay above small arms range and track targets below it. But on the Gazelle, in this variation and scenario, you want to have as much of your helicopter hidden as possible. And you will need to do this because with a maximum range of just a bit over 4 kilometers, pretty much any modern tank in DCS will happily engage you as soon as you poke your nose out. So having almost all of your helicopter hidden becomes very necessary. Now, we have reached our first observation position, and I want to see if I can engage targets from here. I have put the helicopter in a hover and engaged the auto hover below the ridgeline. Now, the auto hover in the real Gazelle will not control the collective as well, the pilot has to do it. However, since we don't have multicure yet and play both positions ourselves, the Gazelle module has an option to let the AI pilot control the collective while you play with the gunner station and keep the helicopter's altitude up. But turning this off, you can hover up in auto hover mode, so you can park the heli completely in cover and then slowly climb till your sight can see above cover. Now, you can of course also hover back down in auto hover, but you have to be very careful when doing so because you're stationary in auto hover, obviously. So it is very easy to get into a vortex ring state when you descend straight down in auto hover, especially when you see a threat and you want to go back down fast. So if you do see a threat and you want to get back into cover fast, I would strongly suggest that you disengage the auto hover completely and also fly a bit sidewards or backwards to avoid VRS while ducking back down into cover. Now, we are just high enough to have the sight poking out over the ridgeline and look down behind it, and I just spotted the first group of enemy vehicles showing up behind the hill. A few T-90 tanks and BMP-2s so far. Now, with the weather not too great and it being a little dark because of the clouds, I figure to better switch to the IR camera to better pick out targets against the background. Now, while we would be in a good position to engage, sadly we are still out of range, with the distance to the targets being about 5.8 kilometers, so I need them to be more than a kilometer closer than that. I did another quick measurement along their paths to see how close they will be before they disappear behind the ridgeline. About 5.5 kilometers, so still too far to attack them from this position. And now there's also the rest of this group coming into view, and all the way in the rear we have two AA vehicles, one being an older Zetsu-23 Shilka with quad 23mm anti-aircraft cannons and radar guidance, but the other one is a newer and much more dangerous Tunguska with twin 30mm cannons, also radar guided, as well as 8 anti-air missiles, so we have to look out for this one and keep an eye on the RWR. But in any case, we can't attack them from here. I take another look around to see if I can spot another group of enemy vehicles. I know there's more than one, but at the moment I can't see another one, so I will have to change my position in order to attack them. Now, they are coming my way, so they are getting closer to me on their own, so I figure if I just move up a little bit and get closer to the ridge in front of me and look over it again, I should be able to see enough of their route to be able to shoot at them as they come into range. So I disengage the auto hover and move just a little bit further forward, keeping an eye on the variometer which measures descent or climb rate, while I slowly get closer to the ridgeline to make sure I don't ascend by accident and become visible to the enemy units. And then when I reach my new position, just a little bit closer to the enemy units, I put the helicopter back into an auto hover again. And then I use the collective again to climb till I can see above the ridgeline again. And of course switching to the gunner seat to have a look at the monitor of the targeting sensor, since it is mounted above my head and I would like to have it just the right altitude that the camera of it can see over the ridge, but I can't myself from the gunner's position to make sure I'm just high enough that the sight is poking out while still as much as possible of the helicopter is hidden. To get that perfectly right is not easy though, especially when the enemy units are below and you often tend to be just a little bit higher than necessary. This looks pretty good though. Now, poking up over the ridge, I have the enemy units inside again from this first group. A quick measurement with the ranging laser shows that they are now about 4.7 kilometers out, just a few hundred meters more, and I can fire on them. However, with the angle they are moving, they will be hidden behind the ridgeline soon again. Doing some more measurement, it turns out that they will disappear out of sight just when they are getting in range, so I eventually decide to climb a bit more to engage. So I start to slowly climb up a little bit more to look over the ridgeline again. And now this first group of enemy vehicles should be well within range of my ATGMs, and I can start to attack them as soon as I have them inside again. Though this time while climbing up I end up a little bit higher than I should have. You can also see the other enemy groups in the background now as they are being engaged by the Abrams tanks. Now, I at first want to attack a T-90, but the Tunguska has stopped and is looking at me, and I get a warning from my RWR about the Tunguska's radar, so I switch targets quickly to take the Tunguska out before it has a chance to fire at me. So I fire the first of my 4 hot anti-tank missiles at this enemy AA unit, and I get a hit before the Tunguska gets a chance to fire itself. Now I switch to my second missile and I aim for a PMP, simply because I already have it almost in my sight, and with their ATGMs those PMP-2s are also a threat to tanks like the M1. Now, with the wire-guided missiles, you of course have to manually keep the crosshair on target. It is not tracking automatically like on a Ka-50 for example. Now, with this PMP taking out, I slew my sight over the next in line and fired a third missile. As you can see, you can get pretty good rate of fire with those hot missiles, even though they are not fire and forget. Now the M1 tanks are also doing work it seems, and quite a few enemy vehicles are taken out. The BMP I am aiming at breaks to avoid a wreck of a tank, which sadly throws my aim off for a second and my missile misses. Now my last one is also aimed at the BMP, but sadly it also misses, I'm not sure why exactly in this case. But anyway, those are our 4 ATGMs spent, so we are out of here. Sadly we had 2 unfortunate misses, so we did not do that much damage, but at least the Tunguska is out of the picture, though there are other AA units still around. But this fight is not over yet, so we have to hurry back to our FARP to get more missiles and get back into the fight. The closer one of the 2 FARPs is just a few kilometers away between Hiko and Crystal Springs. The enemy is a bit closer now, but still too far away to threaten this closer FARP. But should we have to rearm again after that, I assume we will have to use the FARP back behind Crystal Springs. So here we are landing on the FARP. Thankfully and in line with its tactics, the helicopter does have hot rearming capabilities, meaning we don't have to shut it down to get more ammo, just park it on the FARP and then tell the ground crew to rearm. And shortly after that we have 4 brand new Hot 3 missiles loaded and we are ready to get back into the action. And with the units at Hiko still fighting, we want to get back there as soon as possible to support them. This time I decide I want to try to fire from the lake a bit behind to the east of Hiko, hoping the enemy units are close enough by now that I can engage them from here. In the meantime, we have also received a warning about enemy fighters in the area. F-15s are supposedly on their way to take care of them though. Now, getting back towards the action, I also get a message from the defenses around Hiko. They are taking losses and start to retreat towards the main defensive lines at Crystal Springs now. Though it seems they have done their fair share of damage to the enemy. There are burning tanks everywhere. And I hope I can cover the retreat from here and maybe get a few more of the enemy tanks before I also fly back towards Crystal Springs. So I duck down over the lake. The bank is going up pretty steep here and provides decent cover, though by this time I am hoping the enemy AA capabilities are reduced and the enemy tanks are more concerned with our tanks than me, so I don't waste too much time getting the perfect position with just a side poking over the ridge. Now, I scan for targets now. The enemy groups have taken heavy losses, but there are still a few units around. Sadly, doing a range measurement, I can see that they are still out of range of my ATGMs for now. However, before I can think about how to proceed, I got a new problem. A new target suddenly appears in my sights, a Mi-24 Hind attack helicopter, and it turns right towards me. I'm not sure if it has seen me yet, or if it is just turning that way for another reason. It did look like some of our units were engaging it earlier. Now, with it coming straight at me, it is easy to keep my sight straight at it, and I would really like to fire a hot missile at it. Sadly, however, the system just refuses to give me launch authorization. I was almost ready to turn away and get out of here, when the Hind changes course and flies away, and I guess it has not seen me yet, so I figure I use this opportunity to still try to get a missile or two fired at the enemy tank before getting out of here. Looking at the enemy Hind helicopter, it seems he's climbing and turning away, and I did see some autocannons engaging him, so I hope this Hind is damaged and getting out of here as well. Now, the enemy tanks are still out of range, but they are coming closer, and I still hope I might be able to shoot one of them as it comes closer and in range. So I keep scanning for targets that I might be able to destroy. Most of the closer ones are taken out already. The M1 tanks did a good job here. From my point of view at the moment, only the group the furthest away is still intact, though I'm not sure I can see all of the enemy groups. There still might be a closer one hidden behind the ridgeline. Now, while looking though, I suddenly see some autocannon fire coming my way and passing to my left. It is coming from Hiko, so from our units, which indicates that they are firing at the target behind me, probably the Hind. So I figure I have really overstayed my welcome here and it's time to get into a better position. And not a second too late it seems. Just as I get moving, I have a heavy machine gun salvo landing next to me, and this one is enemy, as you can see by the green tracer color. At this time I figure it is coming from an enemy APC like a PTR-80, which have heavy machine guns like this, and I have missed, since the Hind helicopter last I saw it was in the wrong position to be responsible for that machine gun burst. In any case, I charge back towards Crystal Springs as fast as I can to get out of range of whatever it was that was firing on me. On my way back I am looking for other positions I can fire from, but there is not much cover available here. So eventually I figure I just try to take cover behind one of the houses west of the lake and fire a long-range shot or two from there as the enemy tanks get in range and then get further back. I'm just passing the first FARP, which is by now definitely too close to the enemy to still be safe to use, but I still have my full armament, so I don't need it yet, and I figure I use the houses to my right as cover and hide behind those, so I start to change course towards them. Planning to slowly go down and just hover a meter over the ground behind one of the houses, and then, as usually, slowly pull up behind it till the side on the roof of my helicopter can look over the roof of the house, while the rest of the helicopter is still hidden. However, just as I turn towards the house, I can suddenly see the Hind again, coming my way and launching flares, which surprises me. I figured that thing has taken enough autocannon fire by now to be out of here, but apparently not, and this time it is definitely coming after me, as evidenced by a burst of 50 caliber fire from the Hind's Gatling gun, landing next to me and also shooting a few holes into my helicopter. I start to do some violent evasive maneuvers to try to shake his aim and almost crash the helicopter in the process. I also try to get back towards the friendly units in Crystal Springs, as there should be friendly AA units there. And then I can hear the RWR beeping, and I was never that glad to hear a radar running from that thing before, as it indicates the radar from one of our friendly AA units going active. And they immediately start to engage the Hind that was chasing after me with missiles and guns, chasing the Hind away and eventually shooting it down. While I arrive at Crystal Springs. I have taken some damage from the Hind's gun though, but I'm not sure to what extent. The helicopter is flying though, so that's nice, and I can land on the bed of the FARP at Crystal Springs and have a look at the damage I have taken there. I'm also hoping that I can repair the helicopter on this bed to get back into the action, as I'm not confident in doing so with the damage I have taken, because I don't know what got hit and if something critical might break later. At this point though, I don't know if you can repair at such a far outpost, as I have so far only used it to reload and refuel the helicopter. If you can't, I will have to fly towards an airfield in the rear or call it a day. But at least we played a hand in getting rid of that hind helicopter, or helicopters, as I realized there were actually two different ones. I don't know where those F-15s are that were promised, but maybe they are busy with the enemy fighters that were also reported to be in the area. But in any case, we land our helicopter and try to get a repair. Turns out though that I can't repair at this forward operating base. Maybe there is another FARP module you can add to this to get this functionality, but here I was not able to get the helicopter repaired. So eventually I decided to fly back towards an airbase and repair there, but with the Gazelle not being the fastest, the battle was over before we got there. With the enemy units already pretty decimated though, they were repelled by their main defensive line without further losses on our side. So this mission is accomplished, though we admittedly did not have that big a role in its success this time. But it was a fun mission for me to fly nonetheless, and I hope it helps to show off how you can use the helicopter in a high threat environment with some stronger enemy units, stalking an enemy formation and so on. And if we would not have missed those two shots with our hot missiles and not get damaged by that hind, which was mostly my fault for staying too long at the lake, we could have done some more damage, I think. In any case, I still have a lot of fun in this little helicopter. Well, and this is it for this video. As always, I hope it was entertaining, thanks for watching, and maybe I'll see you next time.